Maybe I wasn't meant to do this today. Maybe, right? Here's the book. My sister sent me this many years ago from Ohio. Kathy, you came again. Okay, good, good. Hey, Moo. Hey, Moo Moo. Moo, did you see? Look how cute. I've had it for a long time and I've never really looked at it. I thought it's perfect to share, right? Let's get going on it. Hi, Denise. And anyone watching in the replay, thank you. Thank you for joining, and I hope you like this book. Okay. Hi, Mary again. Hi, Ravenkind. And Billy Jones again. You guys are awesome. Okay. Let's see here. Food in the Little House. Hi, Haley Ryan. Chapter 1. Laura Ingalls Wilder was born in Pepin, Wisconsin in 1867. In 1932, when she was 65 years old, she wrote her first book, Little House in the Big Woods. Okay, Karen. Okay, I'm not going to look up anymore so I can just read. Okay. It was a lightly fictionalized account of her childhood days, and I just lied. I got to take that off. Of her childhood days in her first frontier home. The next year, she followed with Farmer Boy, recounting her husband Almanzo's boyhood on the prosperous Wilder dairy farm outside Malone, New York, not far from the Canadian border. During the next 10 years, she wrote and published the 7 books that have, with the first 2, become known around the world and in 15 languages as the Little House books. Little House on the Prairie, on the banks of Plum Creek, by the shores of Silver Lake, The Long Winter, Little Town on the Prairie, These Happy Golden Years, and The First 4 Years. Let's see. In them, she traced the migration of her family, Ma, Pa, and sisters Mary, Grace, and Carrie, from Pepin to the southern Kansas border, onto Walnut Grove, Minnesota, to Silver Lake, South Dakota, and finally to Desmet, South Dakota. These Happy Golden Years is set on the Homestead Act claim settled by the Ingalls outside Desmet. It ends with Laura's marriage at 18 to Almanzo Wilder. The first 4 years tells of their life together on their own claim not far away. Throughout this now classic series, much of the action centers on food, hunting it, growing it, losing it to natural disasters, cooking it, preserving it, and eating it. On the frontier, feeding the family was a task that took most of everyone's time. For Pa, let me stop this noise. There we go. For Pa, there was no weekly paycheck to be exchanged for shelter, clothing, and groceries. Pa preserved the food with gun, trap, and plow. Ma prepared and preserved it, and the children helped in both activities. Food also looms large in this pioneer chronicle because there was rarely enough of it. Though she tells of being listless and weak from near starvation during the long winter, the storybook Laura Winter, the storybook in the long winter, in the storybook, Laura never complains of hunger. Yet the real grown-up Laura's memory for daily fare and holiday feast says more about her eagerness for meals, her longing for enough to eat, than it does about her interest in cooking. Farmer Boy is not merely her husband's story, it is her own fantasy of blissful youth, surrounded on all sides by food. The Wilders were established farmers in an area that favored dairy herds and offered a market for dairy products. Caroline Quiner and Charles Ingalls, Ma and Pa, had been raised as farmers, but on land newly turned to the plow. Ma and Pa would carry on the pioneer tradition of their parents, struggling to establish a farm with cash crops, products to sell, but living meanwhile as nomads, off staples from the country store and food from the wilds. It was their migrant life as much as the seasons that shaped the Ingalls' diet, and this fact provides the organizing principle of our recipes. Basic to their lives were the tools and staples that could be paid or bartered for, regardless of place or season. Next in importance were the gifts of nature, fish from the rivers, berries from the brush, game from the woods and prairies, to be gathered in the summer and fall and preserved for winter and spring. Bread from their own wheat was the Ingalls' dream. Usually it was made from store flour. Fresh garden vegetables and barnyard meats and eggs and cheeses were, for both Laura and Almanzo, childhood fare that became elusive prizes. Neither Mother Wilder nor Ma knew anything of the science of nutrition. Vitamins and vitamin deficiencies are discoveries of the 20th century, but they knew that a diet varied enough to please the palate and eye was likely to be a healthful one as well. Picture, if you will, this Sunday dinner on the Wilder farm. Almanzo felt a little better when he sat down to the good Sunday dinner. Mother sliced the hot rye and Injun bread on the breadboard by her plate. Father's spoon cut deep into the chicken pie. He scooped out big pieces of thick crust and turned up their fluffy yellow undersides of the plate. He poured gravy over them. He dipped up big pieces of tender chicken, dark meat, and white meat sliding from the bones. He added a mound of baked beans and topped it with a quivering slice of fat pork. At the edge of the plate, he piled dark red beet pickles, and he handed the plate to Almanzo. Silently, Almanzo ate it all. Then he ate a piece of pumpkin pie, and he felt very full inside, but he ate a piece of apple pie with cheese. Look how cute. I know, right, Jenny? Look how cute the drawing is of Almanzo as a little kid, a little guy. Here's the book if some of you didn't see it. I've had it for a lot of years. My sister gave it to me. She works at a Goodwill in Ohio. If this seems heavy with starches and sweets, remember that it was served to a family accustomed to hard physical labor and unaccustomed to centrally heated houses, and that it was described by an author who ate far more cornmeal, lean game, and wild fruits as a child than breads, fats, and desserts. A special meal on the prairie, the one for Mr. Edwards, for example, consisted of stewed jackrabbit with white flour dumplings and plenty of gravy, steaming hot cornbread flavored with bacon fat, molasses to eat on the cornbread, and coffee sweetened with brown sugar. Hi, Nicole. Probably because I've had too many notices today. That's why, maybe. Celebrations and social gatherings were a time for eating. Socializing for young and old took the form of church suppers and evenings at home, popping corn or pulling candy. But the reverse was not always true. Meal times were not a time for socializing. Usually, children were permitted to speak only when spoken to. But Almanzo and the Ingalls girls were fortunate in having parents who conversed at the table and included them. Certainly, they were better off than many colonial children a century earlier who stood by as their parents occupied the only chairs at the table and waited for morsels from grown-ups' plates. As the Ingalls moved westward into more primitive conditions, the eastern United States was in the throes of the Industrial Revolution. The Great Centennial Exhibition of 1876 was virtually a preview of the 20th century. Visitors to its vast Philadelphia site could see Alexander Graham Bell and his new telephone, observe a demonstration kindergarten, and hear Joseph Lister expound his latest discoveries about disinfecting wounds. They could dine on the most cosmopolitan fare in restaurants featuring French, German, Eastern, and Chinese dishes. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, good. I'm glad you're liking this. You saw the book, right? Hi, Henny. For anyone that didn't hear, my sister that works in Goodwill in Ohio sent me this years ago. And I've never really paid attention to it. I don't know why, but I thought this is perfect to share with you guys. That same year, 1876, the storybook Laura was 9 in real life, and living on the banks of Plum Creek. Her family just moved from the Kansas prairie, where the cooking was done, as it had been done for centuries in an open fireplace. Her new home had a wonderful surprise for Ma, an iron cook stove. More up to date than the Wisconsin stove, it had a big door on the side, which opened to show a big square place with a shelf across it. In other words, an oven. In experiencing both hearth cooking and stove cooking, Laura witnessed the greatest change in the whole history of home cookery. She would live to see many more changes, to kerosene and coal stoves, to gas and electric stoves, and to automatic coffee pots and electric dishwashers. And she would never lose her sense of wonder about them. On a visit to her daughter in San Francisco in her 48th year, she wrote to Almanzo, Aladdin with his wonderful lamp had no more power than the modern woman in her kitchen. Hi, Alicia, my boo. And the stove. It's neat that you got to see so many changes. The Cook's Domain, Chapter 2. The first kitchen Laura Ingalls Wilder describes in her stories is her grandmother's. To a 5-year-old raised in a one-room cabin that functioned as a sitting room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom, and workshop, a room just for cooking seemed quite grand indeed. It was not exactly what we would call a kitchen. There were no water taps and sink, only pails and basins for carrying and heating water from the outdoor pump. There was no refrigerator or icebox. Ice boxes had been invented, but they needed block ice for cooling. Only prosperous farmers, like the Wilders, had the pond, the horse-drawn saw, the team, and the ice house needed for harvesting block ice. As for food, it was stored mostly elsewhere. Potatoes, turnips, beets, and apples were in the cellar below the frost line and far from the sun. The cellar kept produce cool without danger of drying or freezing. Hams, pumpkins, squashes, onions, and dried peppers hung in the attic, where it was also cool in winter, but dry and sometimes smoky from the fireplace below. Fresh meat, if stored at all, was. Oh, gosh, dang you. What are you doing? Garnet. Really? She jumped up here and scared Mittens. Now they're rubbing noses. Hi, Monica. But it's okay. She's always doing something. Now she's chasing her. And she knocked my crocheting off. Oh boy. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. Fresh meat, if stored at all, was in a natural freezer, a shed outside the main entrance to the hall that also worked as a storm door, kept the firewood dry, and had shelves for meat from autumn hunting and butchering. Even the cooking pans and utensils, the dishes and dry stores, flour, cornmeal, salt, had a place of their own, the pantry. In some houses, this was a room in itself. In others, it was a little more than a set of shelves. Unheated as well as covered with a door or cloth against wood ash and flies, it usually also held the week's baking and the day's milk. What made Grandma's room a kitchen, and a modern one at that, was the cook stove. It was called that to distinguish it from stoves used to heat rooms. It had been invented around the time Ma Ingalls was born by an American living in Europe. It was made of iron and decorated with fancy scrolls. This stove heated cooking pots and pans, either on a counter surface with holes called burners or in an oven. There were no dials and buttons. You regulated the temperature by the amount and kind of wood you burned. Seasoned ash, oak, and walnut for a bright fire. Gray, birch, poplar, or green hardwood for a slow one. Here's a pantry, picture of a pantry. Boy, it would have been tough living back then, wouldn't it? Very tough. Okay, Heidi. On baking day, you knew the oven was ready for bread when you could keep your bare hand in it to the count of 20 and no longer. So you put your bare hand in there. I'm not frozen, am I? No, I've never read this before, except today. It's the first day. Hi, Angie Brooks. Yeah, it's a cookbook. Little House on the Prairie. Well, Laura Ingalls cookbook. And tells little stories about the time period. So you'd count to 20 and no longer, so you would know then it was ready for the bread. Wonderful as they were for cooking hasty pudding and pumpkin and for baking pies, the stoves were slow in replacing all fireplace cookery. For as long as fireplaces were used to heat houses, they were the preferred place for cooking meat. Um, Roasting, it was called, and it was done by turning the meat on a spit near live coals. Cookbooks of the day gave advice on both spit and oven roasting, including how to avoid a stovey taste. To this day, charcoal broiled meats have a special appeal. Ma Ingalls had a cook stove in the Wisconsin house, but it was back to open fire cookery for her when the family crossed the frozen Mississippi and headed for Kansas. Throughout the journey and the year in the prairie house, Ma would do with the few utensils she was able to pack, beginning with the all important iron bake oven and spider. Laura Wilder tells just how they were used. Ma set the iron back oven in the coals. While it heated, she mixed cornmeal and salt with water and patted it into little cakes. She greased the bake oven with a pork rind, laid the cornmeal cakes in it, and put on its iron cover. Then Pa raked more coals over the cover, while Ma sliced fat salt pork. She fried the slices in the iron spider. If it had had no legs, it would have been only a frying pan. Hi, Felicia Lewis. I know it's making me hungry too. A tea kettle of iron or heavy copper and possibly a saucepan completed the heavy cookware. There was a tin kitchen for spit roasting, and also of tin a coffee pot, a dripping pan for catching meat juices, and plates and cups for the table. With hope of a milk cow, there must also be milk pans for settling the new milk, shallow round tins, like our layer cake pans, in which the cream could rise to a thick sheet. Square baking pans or flat tin sheets held bread, cookies, or biscuits. The coffee grinder went along in the wagon, as well as the crescent-shaped chopping tool and the wooden bowl that cradled it. So probably did a board for working bread and pastry dough and a mixing bowl. A popular cookbook from 1884, the year of Laura's marriage, lists 100 utensils with which a kitchen should be furnished. Included, let's see if these are like ours today, okay, guys? Hi, Jackie Burns. Let's see if Peridot has these on her list. She's going to be a new bride next year. She might need some of these. Here's the list. Included are a fish kettle, a lemon squeezer, a jagging iron, a melon mold, and the latest convenience, the Dover egg beater. Even on the claim, when she at last had a real kitchen, so spacious now, with only the stove, the cupboard, and the tables and chairs in it, Ma Ingalls probably had few of these specialized tools. As for Mother Wilder's utensil stock, we can only wonder. Hey, Janie. The very fact of the tin peddler's visit suggests that her kitchen was well equipped. On one occasion, we know she traded rags for milk pans and pails, the colander and skimmer, and the 3 baking pans. Obviously, her taste did not run to rotary egg beaters, ice cream freezers, and other conveniences that might soften the children's muscles. For pioneer housewives with no butchers, bakers, or candle makers to serve them, the work of preparing meals was enormous. I would not have wanted to live back then. No. The farmer might butcher, steer, or pig, clean and scale the fish, and skin the game, but it was the cook who dressed the meat and plucked the fowl. The kitchen garden was hers to plant and tend. She shared in the milking, skimmed the milk, scalded the utensils, and churned the butter. Every day, water had to be brought from the well for washing food and dishes. Pots had to be scoured with sand. Slicing, dicing, and beating had to be done without mechanical aids. Water had to be heated for laundry. Linens and clothes scrubbed, hung to dry, and ironed by hand. The fire, whether on hearth or stove, always had to be tended with an eye to the day's cooking needs, as well as comfort. Even with children to help, I'm already tired too, Alicia. I don't see how anybody could be fat back then, you know? I really don't. Let's see. Where were we? Water had to be heated for laundry, linens and clothes scrubbed, hung to dry, and ironed by hand. The fire, whether on her, oh wait, let's see, I already read that. Even with children to help, the housewife needed a strong back and a quick mind. In organizing her work, traditions like this one helped. And here's a little list. Wash on Monday, iron on Tuesday, mend on Wednesday, churn on Thursday, clean on Friday, bake on Saturday, rest on Sunday. Wow. If you followed this plan, your house would be clean for Sunday sitting, with or without guests. Your butter and baked goods would be fresh for Sunday dinner, and your best clothes and linen would be washed before any stains could set. All these things a woman learned early in life by assisting her mother. At least that was so on the frontier. In more settled parts of the expanding country, girls and boys spent their days in school, learning from books. A growing number of young women were becoming the audience for another growing group, the writers of housekeeping manuals and receipt books. These industrious authors deplored a society in which prospective housewives learned Latin and literature at the expense of cooking and sewing, and they rushed to fill the void with advice on everything from hiring servants and curing croup to buying kerosene and making ink. One of the most popular was Eliza Leslie's Directions for Cookery, which went through 38 editions before the author's death in 1858. It is still available today. Wow. Really, Directions for Cookery. Women at home found escape, as well as instructions in ladies' magazines offering food and fashion news and romantic stories in serial form. By the time Laura was a mother, the venerable Peterson's Magazine and Godey's Ladies Book had competition from Harper's Bazaar, Good Housekeeping, and Ladies' Home Journal. There was even a strong movement spreading westward to give recognition to housekeeping as a profession requiring scientific training. Catherine Beecher, with help from her sister Harriet Beecher Stowe, not only wrote outstanding housekeeping manuals, but also founded schools where women studied domestic arts along with academic subjects. In the decades that followed the Civil War, commercial cooking schools flourished in Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. Land-grant colleges in Iowa, Kansas, and Illinois began offering courses for women that developed before the century had ended into full-fledged colleges of home economics. The name of the Mean family, let's see. Olsen. The Olsens. I know Cooking with Clara. I love that lady. Fiona brought her uncle in to ask the father. Wow. Yeah, because they had to do a lot of work. That's what a lot of, men looked for back then, right? Let's see. Laura Ingalls Wilder would catch up with all these developments and even contribute to the literature of homemaking. But long after her own skills had been honed on the grindstone, of lonely experience. From teachers, sometimes wise and sometimes foolish, but never remote, she learned enough to qualify as a teacher and wage earner herself. From her remarkable mother, she learned the skills she would need for the inevitable responsibilities of managing a farm home. When economics and romance conspired to make her, at 18, the mistress of her own farm, she was unseasoned and unsure, but competent. She managed well enough to become comfortable and to undertake, late in life, a new career as a writer of books. We can't help but admire her and be grateful. Look how pretty the inside of this little cabin is. Somehow I don't think mine would look like that. I'd be so ragged from working all day. The dishes would be all over the place. I'd be yelling for Dave to help me more. He'd be yelling for me to help him more. We both come in and just pass out. Oh, no. It looks so cozy and romantic and everything, but no. No, thank you. Let me get my sweater on real quick, guys. A little bit chilly. Go lay down, baby. Go lay down. Okay. Okay. I have to let her in the bedroom. She wants in my room. Wow, Felicia. Yeah, kids did help. Hey, honey. Henny, I don't know if I said hi to you. I was happy to see you here, though. Okay. Staples from the Country Store, Chapter 3. Looks like some recipes are coming up here, too, very soon. We're on page 14. It looks like they start throwing in recipes on page 18. Self-sufficiency was the badge of the American pioneer. Self-sufficient indeed, the Ingalls' seem, yet they never dared settle too far from the country store. It was their lifeline, supplying the essentials that made survival possible and the luxuries that made life livable. Before there could be a house, garden, clothing, and game food in the pot, there must be an axe, nails, a scythe, a plow, needles, thread, cloth, a gun, powder, and a pot. All these could be had at the general store that peculiarly, I hate when I don't pronounce it right. I know how to pronounce words, but sometimes I get messed up on here. American combination of goods and services that flourished in the horse and wagon days. What's more, when cash was low, they could be had on credit or in exchange for pelts, produce, or labor. Even ashes for making lye and rags for paper making were taken in trade. Basic foods like cornmeal, the Ingalls mainstay on the prairie, came from the store. As Ma told Pa, you could find a bee tree, but there's no cornmeal tree to be found, so far as I know, and we'll raise no corn till next year. Even a corn crop was useless without a mill nearby. Hey, my Moo, did I ever say hi to you, Moo? Moo, hi, Ren. Moo. Dried beans were often bought between crops, along with the molasses that transformed them into a favorite dish. Molasses came in barrels from sugarcane plantations in the South. The residue of the refining process, it was the cheapest sweetener available. Brown sugar was next in price. White sugar, requiring the most processing, was the most expensive. Even when maple sugar was plentiful, it was nice to have white sugar that didn't cloud tea or overwhelm delicate flavors. Kevin? It seems strange to have everything one could want to work with, Ma said at the end of the long winter when the supply train finally arrived. Now I have cream of tartar and plenty of saleratus, Moo, say Saleratus. Salarat, I've never seen that word. I shall make a cake. She was speaking of two important stores that made, yes, Ren, this right here, cookbook. Um, oh, you know what it's now called? Baking soda. She was speaking of two important stores that made the difference between heavy baked goods and light ones. Saleratus, now called baking soda, and cream of tartar are the main components of baking powder, a key ingredient of cakes and quick breads. Hi, Carolyn. My honey child, my little girl. Your other sister is in here, Alicia. Teas from China and India, coffee beans from Ceylon in South America, Alicia, peppercorns, mace, nutmeg, and cinnamon from Malay, ginger from Africa and the West Indies, salt from American mines. These were extras that made food into meals and eating a pleasure as well as a necessity. Stored in barrels, piggins, noggins, firkins, and tierces, they were scooped out and sold by weight for home brewing and grinding. These imported luxuries were referred to as groceries. Yep, she's your foster sister. The more commonplace stores also shipped long distances, like flour, salt pork, dried fruits, and vegetables were the produce of the day. Anything that did not have to be weighed or poured, such as an axe or a pail or a pencil, came under the heading dry goods. Mechanical refrigeration was still in the future, and with it, fresh meat, milk, and perishable fruits and vegetables. The general store also had some canned foods. The 19th century was the era of the can, beginning as it did with Napoleon's award to the chef who invented this way of preserving food for his troops. By Laura's birth date, 1867, there were canneries as far west as Chicago and Wisconsin. To Midwestern farmers, the coastal canneries were most important, shipping delicacies they might otherwise never taste: shrimp from Louisiana, oysters and sardines from New England. There were few boxed goods on the shelves. Packaged goods grew up with Laura. Saleratus and later baking powder came in tins. But there were bottles of all shapes and sizes and colors containing patent medicines. From burdock bitters to sans sarsaparilla and Dr. Williams' pink pills for pale people. Each claimed unique cures for all manner of human and animal ailments. In fact, they were merely registered by name and not really patented, for that public action would have revealed most recipes to be more alcoholic than wine or beer. So most of that was alcohol. We know of only one Ingalls purchase from such stores, quinine. This was the accepted remedy for ague or malaria, once common in the hot, damp, mosquito-infested parts of our own country. For the young Laura, a trip to the store was an unforgettable thrill. 60 years after it happened, she was able to recall every detail of her first one, including the storekeeper's gift of candy. Stores for her would always mean candy, not the brown or golden stuff of patty pans and sugaring off time, but exotic flavors like horehound, exotic shapes like canes and ribbons, and all colors of the rainbow in stripes and flowers. For Ma and Pa, there might be the thrill of ogling novel merchandise like Cuban cigars, ready-hemmed napkins, and ivory floating soap. For them, it was also a time to be sharp. Package labels, where they existed, were long on boast and short on information. The scale on which most purchases were measured bore no government inspection seal. They might not fear being yankied by storekeepers, though farmers were naturally suspicious of a man who bought produce at one price and sold it higher without moving his muscles. But the Pure Food and Drug Acts of 1906 was a long way off, and both merchant and customer were vulnerable. There was no law against stretching flour with plaster, cornmeal with sawdust, and pepper with gypsum. The coffee might easily contain dyed navy beans. The raisins might be part pebbles, and the lard might be floured. Trust your eyes, ears, nose, fingers, and maybe old friends. That was a good rule for frontier life, and especially for shopping at the country store. Here's a little drawing, I guess, of Laura going into the store for the first time as a little kid. What was that? Yeah, for those that I didn't get to hear, my sister Becky bought this at Goodwill where she works in Ohio many years ago. And she gave it to me, sent it here to me with some other stuff. And I've just never paid attention to it. So I thought, well, go ahead and read from it. We can all learn together. And Becky did not like Laura Ingalls. She couldn't stand that show. She thought I was just, she didn't know what she thought I was because I liked it. Carolyn. About cornmeal and drippings, then and now. The recipes that follow call for stone ground cornmeal because it is closest to what Ma used. Also called burr ground and water ground, it is whole corn crushed fine between stone grinding wheels that were usually powered by a water wheel. It comes in varying textures and must be kept cool because of its oil content. New process cornmeal, like our old um, I'll have to tell Becky, I found some people that like Little House. New processed cornmeal, like our all-purpose flour, has had the germ removed to facilitate milling in high-speed steel rollers and is enriched to restore food values lost in the processing. As a housewife, Laura Wilder probably welcomed this modern cornmeal for its keeping qualities and a fine texture that made for better raising. Both old and new processed cornmeal can be found in yellow and white with Southern cooking, although true Rhode Island Johnny cakes were always white. The Ingalls surely knew both colors and found, as we find, little difference in the flavors. The drippings frequently called for are fat saved from frying bacon and salt pork. Drippings were used for frying and often took the place of butter as a spread for bread. If they were to be used for pastry, the strong, salty, smoky flavor was first removed by clarifying or boiling the fat briefly with an equal quantity of water. Chilling would then produce a block of clean, bland fat suspended over a flavored waste liquid. Today's drippings have been largely replaced by butter, cooking oils, and solid shortenings extracted from various seeds, corn, cotton, soy, by a process invented in our century. You guys. Fried salt pork with gravy drippings. Outdoors was crisp and cold. Sunshine gilded the frosty windows, and in the house, everyone was hearty and cheerful. How the travelers did enjoy that breakfast. They praised everything they ate. The slices of fat pork were thin and crisp, and the gravy was smooth and brown and creamy. There was hot brown sugar syrup and plenty of fragrant, steaming tea. This meat is delicious, Reverend Stewart said. I know it is just fat salt pork, but I never tasted anything like it. Would, would you tell me how you cook it, Sister Ingalls? That's from the book By the Shores of Silver Lake. Salt pork is a fitting opener to this recipe collection. In the days before refrigerated rail cars opened the way for year-round distribution of fresh meat, preserved pork was the most common meat and fat source in the farm kitchen. Barrels of salt pork were a fixture of the country store, and the Ingalls came to depend on them after they no longer had pigs of their own. Salt pork and bacon came from the fat belly that covers the spare ribs of a hog. Both are preserved in a mixture of salt, sugar, and saltpeter. For salt pork, the mixture is liquid, a brine. Bacon is usually dry cured and smoked. The drippings from fried salt pork and bacon did for many a pioneer family what we now do with butter, margarine, solid vegetable fat, and vegetable oil. Here are the directions Ma gave to Reverend Stewart. I never measure, she said, but I guess I can make a stab at it. The meat is easy. Cut the slices thin and set them to parboil in cold water. When the water boils, pour it off. Then roll the slices in flour and fry them brown. When they are crisp, take them out onto a platter and pour some of the fat off. Save it to use for butter. Then brown some flour in the fat left in the frying pan. Pour in some milk and keep stirring as it boils until the gravy is just right. This is what we have done in trying to recreate the recipe she wrote out. Okay, ladies, men, get your pens. Carol, write down your recipe for the salt pork. For 6 servings, you'll need salt pork, 1/2 to 1 pound, white flour, 1/2 cup, unbleached, all-purpose, homogenized milk, 1 to 1.5 cups, salt and pepper, skillet, 12 inches, and a container for drippings. So parboil slices in the skillet, then drain skillet well before using it for frying. To produce crisp slices, fry them well, at least 8 minutes to a side. Remove them to a platter and pour all but a tablespoon of fat into the container. Store fat drippings in a cool place for use in other recipes. For gravy thickening, use 2 tablespoons of the flour used for dredging. Blend the flour and fat very well before adding milk. Remove skillet from heat as soon as gravy bubbles and thickens. Taste before seasoning with salt and pepper. Serve gravy in a bowl and salt pork slices on a platter. I bet that gravy is good, though. Come on. Karen H., that's where my son-in-law, his family are from. North Dakota. Hasty pudding. But for supper, Grandma made hasty pudding. She stood by the stove, sifting the yellow cornmeal from her fingers into a kettle of boiling salted water. She stirred the water all the time with a big wooden spoon and sifted in the meal until the kettle was full of a thick, yellow, bubbling mass. Then she set it on the back of the stove where it would cook slowly. Then Uncle George came with a smaller bucket of syrup, and everybody ate the hot, hasty pudding with maple syrup for supper. That was from Little House in the Big Woods. Remember that, Karen? Wapaton is his hometown. Wapaton, North Carolina? No, North Dakota. Let's see. I'm not going to read every recipe here, but there's lots of little stories and stuff in here. The name goes back to English hasty pudding made with oatmeal or wheat flour, which may have been a substitute for a very slow cooking dish. Early Americans adapted it to cornmeal. Although the ingredients are simple, the cooking is tricky. Despite the name, the meal must be added slowly to prevent lumping, and the mixture must be cooked slowly to prevent scorching. If you think this sounds plain and dull, try it as the Ingalls ate it with pure maple syrup. For 6 small servings, you'll need a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of stone ground yellow cornmeal, and a 3-quart kettle. And they say to bring 4 cups of water to a boil in the kettle, stir in your salt, put the meal in the bowl so you gather it up easily in your hand. Proceed as Grandma did, stirring the water with a spoon in one hand and sprinkling in the meal with the other. When all the meal has been stirred in, reduce heat and simmer for at least 1 hour, stirring every 10 minutes to prevent burning and to test thickness. The pudding is done when it looks like cooked oatmeal. Serve in bowls with syrup or pour into a deep dish to chill for fried cornmeal mush. Does anybody here like cornmeal mush? Now, I do like that, for real. That's good. You can buy that in the grocery store. It's in a tube, but my mom always made her own, and it was good. Never had it, Ren? Yeah, my dad's made it too. Cornmeal mush. Yeah, it's that polenta looks like it. Looks like the same, very. Oh, Felicia Lewis, what do you mean? No yuck. Girl, you don't know what you're missing. So cornmeal mush is hasty pudding. Been eating that all my life, off and on. And that's hasty pudding. Fried cornmeal mush. Breakfast was ready. When Pa came back from the creek, they all sat by the fire and ate fried mush and prairie chicken hash. Pa said he would make a door that very day. He wanted more than a quilt between them and the wolves next time, from Little House on the Prairie. Cornmeal mush is hasty pudding. Fried mush is hasty pudding that has been chilled, sliced, and fried in fat. That's the one I always love. Oh gosh, guys, it is so good. When it's fried, my mom would cut it real thin, dip it in a little bit of flour, and fry it in, grease. So freaking good. Mine never tasted as good as hers. Hi, Kristen Vita Siv. I hope your aunt's listening. Tell her, hey, Little House on the Prairie, I hope she likes it. Now, see, that's making me start drooling thinking of that. I don't like that either, oatmeal and cream of wheat and stuff. But I do like my fried mush. So for 6 servings, you'll need your hasty pudding and then the drippings, 2 tablespoons. Mold, deep dish, loaf pan or can, a skillet, and a 12-inch skillet. The night before serving, prepare the mush, cooking it as thick and dry as possible. Pour it into a wet mold and chill overnight. A good improvised mold is an empty 1.5-pound can. In the morning, you can remove the bottom and push the contents out a 1/2 inch at a time for easy slicing into rounds. If you use a dish or pan, turn the firm turn the firm mush out and cut into half-inch slices. Heat drippings in skillet and fry slices until golden brown on both sides. You see, my mom just dusted hers with flour. Whisper to me, it's good. Cornmeal. It's cornmeal, Alicia. Cornmeal, but made into that mold, and then you slice it thin and fry it in grease. So freaking good. I've seen polenta a lot, and it looks just about the same. I'm sure it is. But see, now I'm getting all. I'm thinking of the way my mom would fry it, and she'd make it like I said herself. She didn't buy the stuff from the store like I do. And then we have Johnny cake. I always wondered what Johnny cakes were like. Laura always wondered why bread made of cornmeal was called Johnny cake. It wasn't cake. Ma didn't know unless the Northern soldiers called it Johnny cake because the people in the South where they fought ate so much of it. They called the Southern soldiers Johnny Rebs. Maybe they called the Southern bread cake just for fun. Ma had heard some say it should be called journey cake. She didn't know. It wouldn't be very good bread to take on a journey from Little House in the Big Woods. If Laura had ever heard a New Englander pronounce the word journey, she would not have been puzzled. This rude bread goes back to colonial travelers who made a paste of cornmeal and water, spread it on a board, and baked it before an open fire. Rhode Islanders who spell it Johnny cake cook the mixture as a griddle cake. By the time of Laura's girlhood in Wisconsin in the early 1870s, there were many recipes, plain and fancy, for the same product, a crusty slab of cooked cornmeal that was mostly a vehicle for syrup or gravy. At a thresher's dinner, it may have helped make up for a shortage of forks. Hi, Robin Lane. Southern cook, but no mush. No mush. Never heard of slapjacks. I've heard of flapjacks. I need to grab a water before I start coughing. Carolyn, are you still here? Carolyn? Oh, here's the water right here. Carolyn, are you still here? Cheers. Yes, I'm not a grits lover. I mean, I don't hate them, but I know my family likes grits. But I've never really enjoyed them. You never know, guys. We might have to go back to this way of eating sometime, right? I think we do, Karen. We'd probably do pretty good if we got stranded somewhere together and had to figure out what to eat. Hey, Flo. I don't see Flo, but Okay, Flo, honey number, Henny. What'd Henny say? Kiss my grits. Carolyn, what are you doing? Lexi likes hot oatmeal too. Fried green tomatoes, yes, I do like those. I don't like the fried okra. It has like that hair, furry. Oh. She does hate us, Kathy. I've had fried spam. I'm not really into it, but if you got to eat it, you got to eat it. I remember making it for my kids when I was really poor. Yeah, Henny. I've heard it is. I've had it, but I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that furry stuff or whatever on it. So Carolyn is here. Yes. Yes. I love zucchini. Yeah. Spam, I don't know. I bought some for the Bryan clan before because she couldn't get it when the pandemic first started. And she loves it. Her family loves it. And I sent her, I don't know, it was on sale here. And it was all out where they live, out in California. So I sent her like 10 cans of it. And I bought myself a can at the same time. My can's still in there. I haven't opened it. Right, Kristen, yeah. Hey, don't worry about what's in it. Just eat it. Hey, if you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. Yeah, as a kid too, we had it, Denise. Alicia, you've had spam, haven't you? Bryan clan is Mexican, and she said that her, Mexicans love their spam. And my friend Mildred, who just passed away, she was Puerto Rican, and she would always say, "Oh, if you want to make Puerto Ricans happy at a party, you bring a pork roast." And that's not being prejudiced. She's the one that told me this. And she said, "Oh, we love our pork. If you have a party, you have to have pork roast. Or if you have a pork roast, you're going to have a party." Hawaiians love spam, yeah. Now, Karen, I could eat it, but I wouldn't be thrilled. I'd eat it. I mean, Carolyn's eating an apple. Okay, let's read a little more of our book. I'm ready to go back up to the store and get me some cornmeal mush. Can't remember if Isaiah likes it. I know I've made it before since he's lived here. I've never made it for Dave. He won't eat it, of course. I don't know if I've ever made it for Lexi. Okay. Yeah, so by the time Laura's girlhood in Wisconsin in the early 1870s, there were many recipes, plain and fancy, for the same product, a crusty slab of cooked oatmeal that was mostly a vehicle for syrup or gravy. At a thresher's dinner, it may have helped make up for a shortage of forks. So that again is your cornmeal, salt, baking soda, drippings, molasses, cultured buttermilk, and baking sheet. You know, it says some old-time cooks insist that Johnny cakes be broken into serving portions, but cutting into squares seems a better way to assure fair shares. Serve warm with honey, molasses, baked beans, or boiled cabbage and meat. You don't like corned beef hash, Annie? Oh my gosh, that's so good. And I love spinach too. Okay, corn dodgers. That morning, Mary and Laura played by the creek among the rushes. They did not go near the swimming hole. They did not touch the straw stack. At noon, they ate the corn dodgers and molasses and drank the milk that Ma had left for them. They washed their tin cups and put them away. That's from On the Banks of Plum Creek. Corn dodgers are a descendant of the Indians' apapone or corn pone, small cakes baked directly in the fireplace embers, with or without a wrapping of wet corn husk. In the Midwest, dodgers were usually made of cornmeal, lard, and milk. They were shaped either in small patties or like miniature ears of corn and were baked, fried, or fried and baked. Dodgers take some getting used to, but they are worth trying, both hot with butter, as they appeared at Thanksgiving, and cold with molasses, as the girls ate them. Which do you prefer? This is like almost the same recipe all over again. For a dozen of the Dodgers, you'll need 2 cups of cornmeal, a scant teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of lard, half cup of whole homogenized milk, drippings, bacon or salt pork, your bowl, and your skillet. You mix your cornmeal and salt in a bowl, press lard into well in center, bring a half cup of water to a boil, pour it on the lard, and stir after lard has melted. Stir until mixture is cool and crumbly, and then stir in enough milk to form a sticky batter, about a half cup. Heat about 1 tablespoon of drippings in skillet. Shape the paste with hands into corn ears, or drop it by the spoonful into hot skillet and press with spoon into cakes, watching out for hot spattering fat. Fry ears or cakes well on one side. Turn and brown on the other. Cook about 15 minutes in all. What do you mean you might be sick? Jenny and I are both salivating. They use this cornmeal a lot, didn't they? Cornbread. Ma would roll up her sleeves and washed her hands and mixed cornbread, while Mary brought the wood and Laura set the table. She set a tin plate and knife and fork and cup for Pa, and the same for Ma, with Carrie's little tin cup beside Ma's. And she set tin plates and knives and forks for her and Mary, but only their 1 cup between the plates. Ma made the cornmeal and water into 2 thin loaves, each shaped in a half circle. She laid the loaves with their straight sides together in the bake oven. and she pressed her hand flat on top of each loaf. Pa always said he did not ask any other sweetening when Ma put the prints of her hands on the loaves from Little House on the Prairie. Oh my gosh, how cute is that? Now I'm wanting to get out my thing of Jiffy corn mix. And somehow make cornmeal mush out of it. Cornbread, corn cakes, and game carried the Ingalls through their year on the Kansas prairie, where they had no garden to provide vegetables. The bread and cakes differed only in shape. The ingredients were always the same: cornmeal, salt, and water, and yet the flavors varied. Sometimes bacon fat was used in the pan, sometimes salt pork fat. The corn cakes were served sometimes hot and sometimes cold. At times they were eaten with molasses, at other times with prairie hen gravy. Laura never spoke of this diet as monotonous. Only hunger was tiresome. Yeah, you'd rather have this than hunger. For 6 servings, you'll need drippings or pork rind, 3 cups of cornmeal, salt, and your bake oven. Tells you how to make it then, you know. It says divide the dough, shape it, and press it into the greased bake oven as Ma did. Cover and bake until dough surface is crusty, 30 to 40 minutes. Cut loaves in wedges and serve warm with more drippings or molasses. And now it's crackling cornbread. Royal and Almanzo, working to fill the ice house in Malone, listed crackling cornbread among their favorite foods. They were not speaking of the plain cornbread Laura knew in Kansas. With plenty of milk and butter at hand, Mother Wilder would have turned out a richer product. We doubt she would have used baking powder, a relatively new product, or sugar, with maple syrup, molasses, honey, and so many delicious preserves to add at the table. And so for crackling cornbread, it's all the same, except you add 2 to 3 tablespoons of cracklings, and you add eggs and cultured buttermilk. Cracklings. Crackling, isn't that, that's pigskin, right? Yeah, pigskin. Yeah, pork rinds, sort of, kind of, right? Yeah, pork rinds. Anybody here like pork rinds? Pork rinds, anybody? Pork rinds. They are keto friendly. Janae, Ann, I have pork rinds over here, microwave ones. Fatback, that's the fat on a pig, a part of the pig. Pork rinds are good. Oh my gosh, come on, guys. These ones that you make in the microwave are so good. Just like microwave popcorn bags, you know? What? Oh, okay, Heidi. What is it? Having our say. Delaney sisters. Having our say. Okay, yeah, I'll look that up, Heidi. Let me write it down or I'll forget. I've never heard of that, but it's worth it. I'll check it out. Having our say. Delaney sisters. Very good. Very good. Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be good. Not possum. Let's see what else here now. Baked beans. The hot soup and hot tea warmed them all. They ate the broth from the beans. Then Ma emptied the beans into a milk pan, set the bit of fat pork in the middle, and laced the top with dribbles of molasses. She set the pan in the oven and shut the oven door. They would have baked beans for supper from the long winter. The book, The Long Winter. The baked beans that often appeared in Little House meals suggest Ma's New England heritage. The dish goes back to beans cooked by Indians with bear grease and maple syrup in earth pits heated by hot stones. They worked themselves to death back then, Henny. But they had to, or you'd starve if you lived out on the prairie like them. Puritan housewives mixed beans with a bit of molasses, salt pork, and onion, and sent them off in large pots to the local bakery to cook all Saturday. The beans would provide a hot Saturday supper and cold meals for a work-free Sabbath. Beans are a good source of protein, economical of the earth's resources, as well as our own. Preparing them the old way with little molasses to mask the bean flavor is worth a try. You may enrich the mixture, as Mother Wilder did, with onions and sliced peppers, but do sample the old-fashioned flavor before adding any more sweetening. Now I want baked beans. Yes, the cornbread and baked beans. For 6 servings and leftovers, you will need navy, pea, or little white beans, 3 cups, teaspoon of baking soda, your salt pork again, quarter to a half pound, quarter cup of molasses, and then optional, 3 small onions cut in chunks, green peppers, 2 cut in strips, and additional molasses. And then it just goes through the process of how to cook them, which is quite a process here. Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. You have to let them soak and simmer and soak overnight and all that. Sounds good though. think even Dave would eat these as long as I didn't put the peppers in there, the green peppers or anything. And then they have bean porridge. Bean porridge. Yep, Kathy, bean porridge. We'll read about that in a second. That's on the next page. This is bean soup. There was nothing to do but sit huddled in coats and shawls close to the stove. I'm glad I put beans to soak last night, said Ma. She lifted the lid of the bubbling kettle and quickly popped in a spoonful of soda. The boiling beans roared, foaming up, but did not quite run over. There was a little bit of salt pork to put in them too, Ma said. Now and then she spooned up a few beans and blew on them. When their skins split and curled, she drained the soda water from the kettle and filled it again with hot water. She put in the bit of fat pork. There's nothing like good hot bean soup on a cold day, said Pa, from the long winter. This is not, alas, a recipe for the soup that is a thick, savory blend of corned beef liquor, pureed pea beans. This is not, alas, wait, this isn't making sense. This is not, alas, a recipe for the soup that is a thick, savory blend of corned beef liquor, pureed pea beans, chopped onions, celery fried in drippings, and tomatoes. The Ingalls may have dreamed of such soup during the long winter, but the best they had was the broth of beans simmered for baking. If you wish to sample bean soup as the Ingalls knew it, start by preparing the preceding recipe for baked beans and tasting the broth. How good a soup it is will depend largely on how cold you are and how hungry. Bean porridge. And they played bean porridge hot. Facing each other, they clapped their hands together and against each other's hands, keeping time while they said, bean porridge hot, bean porridge cold, bean porridge in the pot 9 days old. I like it hot, I like it cold, I like it in the pot 9 days old. I thought that was called peas porridge hot. Have I been wrong on that all these years? Carolyn, you said it was peas too. Peas porridge hot. Beans, cornbread, and fried potatoes cooking. Really, Jean? It does sound good. I mean, I've had all that, but never all cooked in an iron skillet. Yeah, it's peas. Yeah, but this is bean. That was true. No supper was so good as the thick bean porridge, flavored with a small bit of salt pork that Ma dipped onto the tin plates when Pa had come home cold and tired from his hunting. Laura liked it hot and she liked it cold, and it was always good as long as it lasted, but it never really lasted 9 days. They ate it up before that. from Little House on the Prairie. In early times, oh, okay. In early times, pea beans were sometimes called peas, Pease, which is why some of us know this chant as peas porridge hot. The dish referred to is a colonial one made by cooking pea beans, cornmeal, and hulled corn in the stock of boiled corned beef. The beans might be leftover baked beans. On the prairie, Mom did without hulled corn and used salt pork for meat. What's going on, Janae? Peek out somewhere where they can't see you. That's what I do, Janae. Calm down. It's okay. I know it's scary, though. Okay, Heidi, I'll write that too. Mr. God, this is Anna. They left. I'm calling the non-emergency police. That's good, Janae. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I would call too if they were pounding like that. And ring the doorbell. Yeah, call the non-emergency cops. No car. Call because I'm sure they'll come out and do a drive around. You want whoever did that to see you have the cops watching. Good, Janae. Yeah, stop telling us and just call them, please. You're getting me nervous now. I'm sure it's okay, but just to be safe, okay? No, I hate that Ren when it's a neighbor and you know they're. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay, she said she's gonna call them, so well, Janie, it could have been, but usually, don't you think they'd be yelling, help, help, help me, or something? maybe. But you never know. It could be maybe they just didn't want to yell, right? Yeah, you never know. You just never know. Okay, I know she's calling them. It's probably why she's not answering right now because she's calling them. So, okay. This is oyster soup. This one's called. We'll go for a little bit longer, probably for a total of, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. We're at an hour and 36 right now. Oyster soup. First, there was oyster soup. In all her life, Laura had never tasted anything so good as that savory, fragrant, sea tasting hot milk with golden dots of melted cream and black specks of pepper on its top, and the little dark canned oysters at its bottom. She sipped slowly from her spoon to keep that taste going over her tongue as long as she could. And with this soup, there were little round oyster crackers. The little oyster crackers were like doll crackers, and they tasted better because they were so light and small. Ooh, that's from by the shores of Silver Lake. Now that sounds so good too. Never really, yes, oyster stew, and it's so easy to make, isn't it? Yeah, my mom used to make it. My dad makes it still. I've made it, and it just, yeah, when I made it, I guess, you know how it is. When you make it, it seems like it's never. Thank you, Jean Deloche. That's so sweet. Sis Littlefoot, look who's here. Yes, Dad has made it, Shelley. Don't go saying he didn't. Thank you so much, Jean. You didn't have to do that, but I really appreciate it. So sweet. That's Shelley, guys. Sis Littlefoot. She's got to say, oh, Dad does not. You know darn well he's made it. Do you like it, Shelley? I bet you do. Now you can buy me a birthday gift. I got your card today. I bought your card today, I should say. Yeah, Heidi. It always tastes better when somebody else makes it, right? Especially when Sis Littlefoot makes it. Are you going to make anything for your birthday tomorrow? She's having herself a 7 o'clock birthday party tomorrow, her 50th birthday at the casino. She has a hotel room. You're not there yet, are you, Shell? You made a bunch of food? Are you already there? Weren't you going to stay there 2 nights or something? The suite. Yeah, are you already there in the suite, Shell? Shelly, Sis Littlefoot? No, going tomorrow. So you're going to stay just one night? Why was I thinking you were going to be there for like 3 nights? Tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. But your birthday is actually Sunday. Okay, Saturday to Monday. Okay. Shell, did you see what I'm reading from? Becky got me this years ago at Goodwill in Ohio, you know, where she works. Our sister, Becky, you know, Little House on the Prairie cookbook. What are you saying? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Shelly, look at me right now. Tell me who I look like with this hair right now and these glasses. You know who I think I saw myself and I thought, oh my gosh, I look just like her. Miriam, Kenny's wife, don't I look like her right now? Thanks, Ren. Alicia, Elton John. This little, don't I? Oh, well. It's a cardigan, Ren. My grandson's girlfriend made it. I am adopted from China. I know. You know, Shelly, Alicia Biso right there, she's from Peru, Lima, just like Rena. And she sounds like her when she talks and everything. Thank you, Janie. It'll look better next week. I get it cut on Wednesday at 3 from Caroline Connor. Heidi. I did take my monthly bath today. Yeah, Brazil. You love me more than Rena. No, I don't plan on it. Oh, your spice houses? They're right here, Shell. No, Carolyn, I'm not staying overnight. Look, Shelly. Guys, this is what Shelly wants so bad. When I die, I have this set of she keeps asking me, how are you feeling? Feeling okay? It's the Lenox Spice Village Fine Porcelain, 1989. Handcrafted in Taiwan. Of course, it's dusty, but anybody seen these before? How long am I going to make you wait? I did replace a few of them, Shelly, because I broke them when I took them off the wall when I was painting. Remember those, Karen? Yeah, she's one of my little sisters. Stop hanging on, just give up already. See, our whole family has this sense of humor. I was a clearance special, that's right. Hey, Shelly, they all want to see Michael Jackson's house. So sometime I need you, hopefully it would be nice if you would come by and we would go over there together. And I could film and stuff because I'm not exactly sure where it's at. I mean, I have the address, but I've only ridden there with you. We're not riding our scooters over there. They're going to end up, they push us off of them. Unless you think it'd be okay. You really think it'd be okay to ride them? Oh, you and Melissa did? Okay. Hi, Slam RN. Yeah, Janie, we're definitely going to do it. I'm definitely going to take you guys there, whether she goes or not, but beep, beep. You can, and I will drive in the car. To Michael Jackson's house. Slam RN. Got to get those spices one way or another. Shelly. Yeah, in Gary Slam RN. Caroline Connor is going to do my hair on Wednesday. Slam RN. I know. I know, Jackie. Minnie? Minnie. No, I don't, Ren. Okay, we'll read a little bit more of this. Alicia. Oh, Shell, what'd you make for tomorrow, by the way? So I'll know if I should eat beforehand. Oysters have been a favorite American delicacy since before the arrival of the first Europeans. As East Coast cities grew, so did the number of oyster houses and street stalls where people snacked on freshly opened raw oysters. Wealthy Midwesterns had barrels of oysters in ice sent by wagon from the Chesapeake Bay over the Allegheny Mountains. The first canneries were built near oyster ports, and it was their output that the inland pioneers knew. In those days, shellfish were scraped up from the sea bottoms of eastern and Gulf coastal waters where nature had put them. But oyster farming became necessary to meet the demand, and many present-day varieties have been brought to our shores from Japan and Europe. To Laura Ingalls, such rich fare as this was a thrilling change from pork fat and cornmeal. Modern readers trying to avoid rich food may prefer to make oyster soup, as Ma did this on Christmas Day during the long winter. For that cold celebration, she had oysters, but no more than a cup of milk, no butter, and no oyster crackers. And then it just tells how she made it. Right, Jackie? Codfish balls. Mrs. Woodworth brought then a platter full of hot, creamy, brown codfish balls, and then a plate of tiny hot biscuits. She passed butter in a round glass butter dish. Mrs. Woodworth urged generous helpings, not once, but twice. Then she brought cups of coffee and passed the cream and sugar from Little Town on the Prairie. Let's see, crab salad, spaghetti salad, pulled pork, egg salad sandwiches, taco meat with my own fried tortilla chips. Oh, that's always good. I love that. Shrimp, cookies, banana bread, meatballs, cheese tray, crackers, chips, Jello salad, and a few others I can't think of. LOL. Ooh, that's going to be good, Shell. I love your own fried tortilla chips. Those are so good. Dad's probably making some of that, right? I bet Dad's doing the crab salad and the pork. Well, yeah, but now you lost all that weight and you're not really that much about it anymore, girl. So stop. Dad's not, really? Is he coming though? Well, yeah, I know he's going to come. In the days before 1924, when Clarence Birdseye devised a way to flash freeze fish, ocean fish headed for inland markets had to be salted, smoked, or canned, sometimes all three. Cod taken from the Atlantic by New England fishermen was put in brine, then drained and packed in long, flat wooden boxes for shipment all over the country. Salt cod was a staple food. Oh, it's Breeze too? He's not doing well. Not feeling good? Oh, it's Bree's birthday actually today, isn't it? The 22nd. Okay, gosh, she's 30 and you're 50. He's in pain. He couldn't have that procedure the other day. Is it from that? Since they couldn't do it? 21st? Okay, yeah, I guess it is. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow, though. Now there is no longer an American cod packing industry, and salt cod from Canada is an expensive luxury. It can still be found in boxes, 1 pound size, as well as plastic vacuum bags. The brittle, sun-dried bacalao, I don't know how to pronounce it, of Italy and Spanish countries, now widely available in U.S. cities, requires longer soaking than this recipe allows. We suggest you prepare codfish balls for breakfast as New Englanders enjoy them. You will have to rise early, but your family will sleep through the odor of simmering cod that belies the delicacy of the finished dish. Yes, Alicia. Oh, and he's got that catheter. Okay. Yes, so that wouldn't be, yeah, okay. None of me. Sure. We'll start all over. Okay, we're almost done. About 5 more minutes. For 6 servings, about 5 codfish balls each, you will need moist salt cod, a half pound, a teaspoon of vinegar, a pound of potatoes, 2 eggs, pepper, and a pound of lard. A 2-quart bowl, a 6 cup saucepan, a 1 quart saucepan, slotted spoon, and brown paper. The night before serving, cover your cod in the bowl with tap water, add vinegar, and let soak at room temperature. Really, Alicia? Bacala. Huh. Next morning, wash and peel the potatoes and place in larger saucepan. Simmer in water to cover until they break easily with a fork for about 20 to 25 minutes. While potatoes cook, drain the cod and flake it into the smaller saucepan. Start by removing any tough skin, then pull flesh apart in small pieces. Cover cod with water and simmer 15 minutes. Drain well and cool. Rinse out the bowl, break the eggs into it, and beat them well with a heat to cook away any remaining water. Remove from burner and mash with slotted spoon until smooth and cool. Turn potatoes and cod into bowl and beat well with eggs and pepper. Rinse saucepan, the potato saucepan, and wipe until completely dry. Heat your lard in it until it's hot enough to brown a half-inch cube of sliced bread in a minute. Drop the codfish mixture in the hot fat by rounded teaspoonsful, 4 or 5 at a time. The balls should brown in 1 to 1.5 minutes. Remove them when brown to a warm plate with brown paper to drain. Repeat with remaining mixture. Before serving, remove the paper from the plate. Big in Italy, bacala. Am I breaking up? Eh. Is it still breaking up? No? Is it okay now? Is it okay now? Mary, you're still here. Jean Deloche, you're still here. Hi, Nicole Griffith, you're still here. Sis Littlefoot already left, or she would say thank you to you guys for the happy birthday wishes. Sorry for her being so rude. It's okay now. You dozed off for a little while. You're still here? Okay, Slam. Well, I guess I'm going to go now. It's been fun so far, right? We're already at chapter 4. It does, right, Felicia? I hope that's a good thing, Mary. Nighty night. See y'all later. Thank you. Chapter 4 is Foods from the Woods, Wilds and Waters. That should be a pretty good chapter coming up, right? Yeah, be a good one. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. See you more at later at Carolyn's. Okay. Bye, you guys. Bye.